Okay. We're continuing now with Siman Shin Samach Daled. Conclude Siman Shin Samach Daled. Discuss the dinim of Mavoi Akum and Mevoyos Bizman Hazeh. So we have a few sifim in Alter Rebbe till we finish, and sif Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, and Tes. That's where we're holding. So the Sif Hey begins with Mavoi, which is like a Daled. It means it takes a turn and it's open. We have a Mavoi, takes a turn and it's open. There's houses on both sides, and there's open from Rishus Harabim on one end, open from Rishus Harabim on the other end. Then you need a tikkun in both openings to Rishus Harabim, and you also need a tikkun where it takes the turn. Why? Because this part where it takes a turn, it's considered as if that part is open to Rishus Harabim. So we look as two separate mavois. It's very important to understand this because it's the search for everything, for the Siman. And Mavoi Akum, or all the mavois of this form, we look at them as two separate mavois. So we have one mavoi going this way, one mavoi going this way, and then one mavoi going this way. Rather than it's one, even though it's one long mavoi, because it's misakim, as I get down, we look at it as this is one mavoi, this is one mavoi. Being that it's completely open over here, so this mavoi over here is open to the Rishus Harabim on the bottom, and it's open here to a place which is open to the Rishus Harabim. So this place needs a tikkun, this end and this end. Same thing with this mavoi over here. It's open on this end, it's open on this, it's open over here also. It's considered as fully open on both ends. So therefore you need a tikkun here, you need a tikkun here, and you need a tikkun in the middle. Now, why do you need a tikkun in the middle aside from the fact that it's considered open? It's because it has to be visible to all the people of the mavoi, the tikkun, and therefore if you're only going to have in the two heads of the mavoi a tikkun, the people that are in this mavoi over here are only going to be able to see one tikkun that's in this end. They're not going to be able to see the tikkun over here. So they only see one tikkun. The people over here are only going to see one tikkun. So it's not considered closed. There's two reasons. So you have one reason because it's open, it's considered open. One reason because it has to be visible. So now, what's the way to do it? You need it. The easiest way to do it is make one tzuras HaPesach right here, and a slant over here, and one tzuras HaPesach over here, and then you solve this one and this one. Right, then you put a lechi and a koyd over here like a regular mavoi, and a lechi and a koyd over here like a regular mavoi, and the tzuras HaPesach right here. Now, in a general mavoi, before we get to mavoi akum, we already know that a general mavoi, which is open to the Rishus Harabim on two ends, a straight mavoi, you need a tzuras HaPesach on one end and a lechi and a koyd on the other, and you can't put a lechi and a koyd on both ends. A lechi only works when you have three, when it's enclosed from three sides. So if you put a lechi over here and a lechi over here in a regular mavoi, not a mavoi akum, then it's essentially open from both ends. You didn't solve anything. When you put a tzuras HaPesach over here, then you closed off this mavoi. Now it has a third wall, tzuras HaPesach, and you put a lechi on this side and it works. So when you have a mavoi akum, each mavoi needs to have one tzuras HaPesach. That's what Alter Rebbe paskins. Each mavoi needs to have one tzuras HaPesach and one lechi. So the easiest way to do it is put a tzuras HaPesach right in the middle. And that way, you put a lechi in the beginning and over here, and then this mavoi has a tzuras HaPesach here and a lechi here. So it's one wall, and a tzuras HaPesach. It's three walls and a lechi. This mavoi is the same way. It has one wall here, one wall here. Tzuras HaPesach has a third wall and a lechi, and a lechi over here. Or the other way to do it is that you make a tzuras HaPesach on both ends towards the Rishus Harabim, which sometimes you anyways need. If it's more than 10 amos wide, you anyways need a tzuras HaPesach. Lechi and a koyd doesn't help if it's wider than 10 amos. So you're going to put a tzuras HaPesach on this end, a tzuras HaPesach on this end, and over here you put a lechi and a koyd, and then again, this mavoi over here has a tzuras HaPesach and a lechi, so it's considered closed off. And this mavoi here has a tzuras HaPesach in this end, and a lechi over here, and it also works. That is the idea of a of a mavoi akum. And now if you have a mavoi which looks like a ches, so you have to do two tikkunim, the same thing. You have a ches that goes like this, and like this. Yeah, you have, so the same idea, just like we had it like this over here. So here when you have a ches, what you need to do, again, we consider this one mavoi, this is a mavoi, this is a mavoi. So you'll need a tzuras HaPesach over here, tzuras HaPesach over here, and a lechi, and a lechi. And that way this becomes a mavoi which has a tzuras HaPesach on one and a lechi on the other. This mavoi over here is a tzuras HaPesach on both ends, and this mavoi over here is a tzuras HaPesach and a lechi. And it all works out fine. Now why is it that by a mavoi akum, by a mavoi akum l'cha'ira, the logic, why do you need, if you look at it as one mavoi, we understand from Alter Rebbe it's considered as two mavais, right? But what's the base for it? If you look at the Tzemach Tzedek, which we learned previously, Siman Memalef, which discusses the Hirchik Tzuras HaPesach when a Kaisel, when you have a Tzuras HaPesach that's over there, the Alter Rebbe says the Tzuras HaPesach doesn't have to be within 3 Tvachim, it could be up to 10 Amas away when you put a Tzuras HaPesach in the entrance of a mavoi. If you have a Pirze next to it, up to 10 Amas, it still works. So over there, Tzemach Tzedek in Ois Zayin, over there he explains, when he tries to explain the difference in the Pirza and the Mavoi Akum, he explains why a Mavoi Akum is different. And he explains, he brings from the Ritva, why does it not work if you would put a Tzuras HaPesach in one end of the Mavoi Akum, here? If you put a Tzuras HaPesach here, and then you put a lechi and a kaira here and a lechi and a kaira here, why wouldn't it work? So he brings from the Ritva, the Lashon of the Ritva that Tzemach Tzedek brings is, Ki ein ze haroish sheboi tzuras HaPesach, this roish which has tzuras HaPesach, is not chashuv roish shel sheni klal. It's not considered bichlal the head of this mavoi. So this mavoi ends up being with a lechi and a lechi, not with a lechi and tzuras HaPesach, because this mavoi is looked at independently. And therefore it doesn't help to be machshir the second mavoi after the turn, because we looked at it as two separate mavoyos which are parts each one to another. Therefore, if you make a tzuras HaPesach in one roish of the mavoi, you have to have another tzuras HaPesach somewhere over here. Either you're going to put a tzuras HaPesach in the middle, and that way the top mavoi is going to have a lechi and tzuras HaPesach, or you put another tzuras HaPesach in the other end, and then each mavoi will have a tzuras HaPesach, and a lechi. So Tzemach Tzedek comes and asks a simple question. Let's say we put a tzuras HaPesach on both ends, and it's a mavoi amisakin. L'chayra, why do you need anything in that kmumis? Why do you need any tikkun in that kmumis? When we look at it, why are we looking at it like there's a pirz over here? Why are we looking at it like it's an opening to the Rosh Hashanah? You have a tzuras HaPesach here, and you have a tzuras HaPesach here, and you have this mavoi and this mavoi, right? It's closed off like this. This mavoi over here has a tzuras HaPesach right here, right? So it has one wall. It has this wall over here, has this wall over here, and there's a little bit of this wall over here. So it has a fourth wall. All it has a pirze on the third wall. So why do you need a tikkun over here? We look at this one's merubah imid on all sides. It has 4 walls. It has one, the tzuras HaPesach here, the wall going up this way, this wall going up all the way to here. So that's 3 walls already. This little piece over here is a 4th wall. So you have 4 walls. And all you do is you have here a pirze, which is on the side. And if it's a pirze, l'cha'ira, you don't need a tikkun if it's less than 10 amas. So why would you need a tikkun on such a scenario? And the chayra it would help even if Rabbin Boikim Boy going this way. The chayra, according to the tshuva, it seems like the chayra could be mashra if Rabbin Boikim Boy over here. So that's what Tzemach Tzedek says, that when you have by mechitzas of the walls of the mavoi, we're more machmir by a pirze than a pirze and kaisel revi. So if you would have a pirze over here, it would be mekel. If you have a pirze over here, it would be mekel. When you have a pirze on one of these long walls, we are machmir. That's what Tzemach Tzedek brings to explain why we're more machmer by a mavoi akum than by the pirza in the beginning of when you put the hirchik tzuras ha-pesach min ha-kaisel more than 3 tfachim. Because why more machmer on those walls? Because like this. When you have, in this scenario, a regular pirza, this is what he explains over there. Why are we makel by a tzuras ha-pesach, by tzuras ha-pesach hirchik min ha-kaisel? The majority of the people go through tzuras ha-pesach. Minority of the people go through the other side. So you don't have the osirabim, mevatla. When you have a mavoi that goes up like this, forget about this side. Yeah? Let's say you had a mavoi that would go like this, yeah? And over here you would have a akum, it turns, yeah? All the people are going this way. So you have osurabim. Right. The fact that you have a pirza over here, it's not stam a pirza, it's a full-fledged opening. So this pirza, we're more machmer. It's not a pirza in the main wall that you have at Tzuras ha-Pesach and next to it you have a pirza. No, it's a full pirza, that is the only access, the only way to exit. So if it's the only way to exit, osurabim vatla mechitza, and therefore we are more machmer. Mashenkin, if it would be stam a pirza over here, or a pirza over here, or some other pirza, and it has proper passageway, then these pirzas, when we even up to 10 amas, we're not going to even make an issue out of it. But when the pirza is the way that you walk by, then you have a problem. So in this mavoi akum, you have the same problem. All the people that are walking to this mavoi, yeah, everybody's going to be walking this way. There's nobody who's going to look at this pirza and say, oh, you know what, maybe I'll walk out this way. Because you can't walk out this way. The only way to walk is this way. So the only way you osirabim, and you have a problem.
So let's say the mavoi is not a mavoi mefulush, but it has a pirza min outside. It's the same thing. The only way out is through that pirza. Unless you want to go back the same way you came. If
it's open to the osirabim, it becomes a mavoi meful. It becomes a mavoi misakim right away over there in that corner.
Only if the pirza is more than eser.
If it takes a turn, yeah.
No, if you had a mavoi that was closed on 3 sides.
This is if you have a regular mavoi like this, yeah.
And then on the side.
This is the entry to the mavoi.
Yeah.
And over here you have a crack in the wall.
That's 9 amas.
That's 9 amas, yeah. If this opening to the shusarabim would need some kind of tikkun.
Even if it's only 9 amas?
If it's open, if osurabim, yeah.
It has to be also. So if it's open to shusarabim, it doesn't do anything. It
has to be balkabirabim, yeah. Has to be a regular way. If it's stam a break in the wall, it's not enough. A break in the wall is not enough.
So it's not shaded that it's the only way through. It's specifically that balkabirabim.
Yeah, but it is the only way through because you just said it's closed from 3 sides.
Right.
So the only way out.
But it doesn't matter. It's only if a lot of people actually go there.
A lot of people, yeah, people who regularly go there, yeah. Otherwise, it's not. That's what it says about the regular pirza. If regular people don't go through it, if it's not a regular way out, then it's fine.
But also by the mavoi akum, but some are saying it.
By the mavoi akum is the same. By the mavoi akum, it is. But why? Because that is the path. That is the street.
Right. That's what makes it a problem.
Makes it. Yeah, yeah.
Not that it's open. That's the only opening. If it was the only opening and only 3 people walk there, it's not a problem.
No, it's not a problem. If it was cracked in the side, no. But if it was like this, then it's being that's a continuation of the street. It's a problem because everybody uses that. Everybody uses that path. That's why you need a tikkun over there. Mashenkin, a stam pirza in the mavoi, you don't need a tikkun. That's what Tzemach Tzedek explains. Now the Alter Rebbe just adds over here that being that now we split the 2 mavoyos, this long mavoi into 2, or by a ches we split it into 3. So obviously each one of them is considered its own independent one, and you have to make an erev chatzeres between these mavoyos themselves, and otherwise you can't. Whoever made erev chatzeres could carry in their mavoi, but you can't carry to the other mavoi unless each mavoi made erev chatzeres with the other mavoi. That's Sifhei. Seif Vav continues that if you have 2 mavoyos that are open to each other, it's not mavoi amisakum, just happens to be 2 mavoyos that are open to each other, 2 independent mavoyos, they are also considered like a mavoi akum that you have to make a tikkun in the place which is open, which is parts one mavoi to another, because it's considered as if each one of them is open to a reshus harabim or a Kərməlית from both ends, and so if there is no tikkun where the 2 mavoyos connect, whether the mavoyos are one on top of another or one or like a dalid, it's already considered a mokim apartment milui to a place which is aser, and therefore it's an effort needs a tikkun. That is sif vav. It's pretty simple. We'll move to sif zayin, sif ches, mavoi aser kenadol, which is a little bit more of a complicated topic. Yeah. Now, happens to be that just an interesting thing that I found that when we look at mavoi akum, we did say that if it's mavoi amisakem, you need a tikkun right over here, right? But what's the din? Only does it need to have any shear? We know that a mavoi has to have dalad amas, right? Length. Otherwise, it's not a shear mavoi. We learned that. What happens if this mavoi is very small? It's a tiny opening. It's nothing, or nobody lives over here. We consider it an independent mavoi, right? If it doesn't have all the tnoim of a mavoi, do you need a tikkun, another tikkun over here or not? Punkt happens so in the Chazon Ish, he says doesn't work like that. As long as the next mavoi doesn't have all the tnoim of a mavoi also, it's not considered as a mavoi akum. Mavoi akum is a combination of two mavois. This is how we understand from Alter Rebbe also. It's two mavois. So obviously the second mavoi also needs to have the tnoim of a mavoi, just like the first mavoi. If the second mavoi doesn't have the tnoim of the mavoi like the first mavoi, then you don't. Then why would we need a tikkun? It will just be considered like another opening. You don't need a tikkun at the akmumis. You just need a tikkun by the opening. If it's open to the shusarabim, all you need is a tikkun over here and a tikkun over here, because the akmumis is not a. There's no other mavoi over here.
So the akmumis is shusarabim?
Huh? That's how we understand it. Now, it's lav dafka, that's because if that only solves one of the two svaras, right? So when you look at it simply, it makes sense. This doesn't have a tnai mavoi. But ultimately, the people here, it doesn't solve the problem of people not being able to see it. So, we'll just leave it at that. I'm not exactly sure what the maskana is if it needs, but it definitely has to have something over here going this way, otherwise it's stama pirza. If it's stama pirza, you only need the tikkun, you don't have to see it. When it's a regular pirza, you only have to be masaka and doesn't have to be visible. The idea of being visible is when you have its own mavoi, people in the mavoi have to be able to see it. So over here, if people are going to be able to see it, if there's nobody here, they don't have to see the tikkun of the mavoi. People here, for them it's a pirza. They see it, and so then it's not a problem. They don't have to see this opening over here. If it's not a full mavoi over here. If it doesn't have the dalad amas, or it doesn't have anybody living over here, it's just a street which goes this way. All the houses are here. Then the street takes a little turn. But there's nothing here. There's no houses here. L'chayra would not need a tikkun in the akmumis. So Chazon Ish says you only need a tikkun by the end. Let's continue. Weiter. Sif zayin, sif ches. You have to say a mavoi which is asui kanadol. What does a mavoi asui kanadol means? You have a long mavoi. Central mavoi, long mavoi, and this long mavoi has a bunch of small mavois coming out of it on one side and two sides from different places. So now, if this central mavoi is open to the shusarabim or to a Kərməlית from both ends, yeah, just if it would be a regular mavoi, not a mavoi, just a regular mavoi, it's open to the shusarabim from two ends, it would obviously need a tzuras HaPesach on one end and a lechki and a kaira on the other end. Right? Because that way, that's to make it kosher. And if this central mavoi is closed on three sides, so it only has one entry to the shusarabim, it would only need a lechi and a kaira in that end. That's the central mavoi. That's what it says in Sif Ches. Sif Zayin says, now, we already have all the little mavois that come out of it. Now, a lot of these little mavois, all these little mavois, each one of them is open to the shusarabim. That means you have a central mavoi with a lot of small mavois coming out of it, the small streets, big street, small streets. The big street is open to the shusarabim, and also the small streets, each one of them opens to a rishus harabim. A simple example of it would be if you have wider driveways between houses that are open, and you have a long one in the back. Yeah, and it's open to the rishus harabim on both sides, or to a Kərməlית, and then each one of those has a driveway going through to the other street. So you should have a mavoi. If you have houses, it will be a mavoi, a long mavoi with little mavois coming out of it. Open. Each one of them is open to a rishus harabim or to a Kərməlית. So what do you need over there? Over there you need a tikkun in each one of those little mevayos. And how do you solve it? You have to put a tzuras HaPesach by the opening that's closer to the central mavoi, not to the Rishus HaRabim. By the one open to the Rishus HaRabim, you put a lechi and a kaira, each little mavoi. By the one that's open to the central mavoi, that's where you put a tzuras HaPesach. That way you close off. That way you close off by the akmumis over there. You close off that each one of these little mavayos becomes its own independent mavoi with three openings, and it has a lechi and a kaira facing Rishus HaRabim, and the tzuras HaPesach on the other end. Because otherwise, if you don't have that, if you put a tzuras HaPesach by the little mavoi close to Rishus HaRabim, and you put a lechi and a kaira by the little mavoi close to the big mavoi, and the big mavoi itself and all the other mavayos are not all closed by tzuras HaPesachs, then what ends up being is that the other mevayos are open with a lechi and kaira from two sides, and those mevayos also have a problem. So each mavoi, we look at it independently, each mavoi has to have only one opening which has a lechi and a kaira. That means when you look at it, you separate each mavoi into its own piece, each little piece is its own piece, and that each piece has to have not more than one lechi or kaira.
Upstate roads, mainly just the highway, the narrows highways, and then streets that go out of it. Urban, that's narrow enough to be considered.
It's not a mavoi. No houses over there. No houses over there until you drive up.
No, their house is right off the highway. It's like a small, like the 828 or whatever.
I have to see pictures, but I don't know specifics, and each place is different, but you go based on the klolim. So what you need is you have to put a tzuras HaPesach by that opening, and then it's considered at the place where it connects to the big mavoi. It's considered a mavoi akum, and therefore it needs a tzuras HaPesach over there. Now, the Alter Rebbe continues, even if it's mechuvanim. That means even if you have, let's say, you have one long mavoi, then you have two little mavayos coming out of it, one going south, one going north, and these two little mavayos are directly one in front of another mechuvanim. So l'cha'ira, what makes you think that it's long mavoi and that's misakem? Maybe it's one long mavoi going this way, one long mavoi going this way, and then you don't need any tikkun in the corner. So the Alter Rebbe over there says, no, it's still considered misakem in the place where it takes a turn, and therefore it needs a tikkun over there also. So when you have a place which is like a grid, even if you consider all the New York streets like mevayos, because they're each one of them like a grid, they're all squares, you would need to put a tikkun on each corner where it turns to close off the mevayos one from another. Why? Because the place where it opens, even though it's mechuvan, the place where it opens to the bigger mavoi is considered a ke'ilu, it's open to the Rishus HaRabim, and you can't see the tikkun, and therefore you need to do a tikkun. Therefore, you have to do a tikkun over there at the corner also, because each one, even though it's straight, and you see when you stand on the street, you see the tikkun all the way at the end of it, because you have a small mavoi that's split with the big mavoi in between. So you have you have a big mavoi going this way, and you have a small mavoi crossing this way. So this has a tikkun over here and a tikkun over here, but being that the people over here, even though they could technically see this tikkun, they don't see the tikkun going this way. Each mavoi, we look at it, each one of these little mavais, we look at it like this. Not only like this. We look at it like this. So each mavoi, every way it has an exit point to the Rishus HaRabim is considered its path. And therefore it needs a tikkun in every single turn. And every single turn, every single piece has to have not more, a total can't have more than one lechi and a kaira per one, and whichever way you design the grid, you will have to deal with those issues. And if it's not mefulish, for sure it needs it, because it's for sure considered misakim. But all this is regarding regular mevayos. Comes on, Rebbe says, this is all in the regular mevayos that have two chatzeres, and every chatzer has two houses. Mevoyos Shelanu, that we already learned before, that don't have proper houses, because each mavoi has to have at least 2 chatzeres, and each chatzer has to have at least 2 houses. Otherwise, it's considered a chatzer. So mevoyos Shelanu, which are not really mevoyos, are considered like chatzeres. They don't need any tikkun in the turn. Why? Because the chatzer amisakemes does not need a tikkun. Yeah. This din of mevoyos Shelanu we learned previously in Siman Shin Samach Gimel Siflamet Beis. That being that these mevoyos, which are not really proper mevoyos, they become chatzeres, they have a chumrah. The chumrah to them is that you can't be machshir them with a lechi and a koira, but you need the pas, or 2 pasim, or tzuras HaPesach if it's wider than yud, whatever it is. And the Alter Rebbe concludes, even though regarding mefulish, we're machmer by a chatzer, just like a mavoi gomer, which was we learned earlier in the Siman, that's because they're close to the Raשיhem, close to a Kərməlית. But over here, when we're talking about the akmimus, the mavoi misakim, it's not considered, the akmimus is not mefulish. So therefore, you don't have to be machmer over there like a mavoi. Right, so now what's mevoyos Shelanu? Do we consider mevoyos Shelanu today also or not? So this, we have a interesting, when you look at it, when you have a house, yeah, let's define it. Every house, not every house, but a lot of houses are 2-family houses. Or you have buildings of 6 families or 30 families. A house is 2-family house, they have to make an eruv between them. The two residents of the house. Means 2 apartments. 2 renters have to make an eruv between them to carry in the common area. Why? It's considered like a chatzer. It's considered like its own chatzer. This house is considered like a chatzer. Has 2 houses inside this house, which is itself considered a chatzer. Where is this clearly written? If you look in the Shas HaTshuvas Tzemach Tzedek, in the same Siman Mem Aleph, in Ois Ches, the end of Ois Ches, which is on page 63, you will see over there, the Tzemach Tzedek says, Kevon sheyesh ba'abayis kama chadarim, since each house has a few rooms, yesh lo yimar, I'm also going to explain what that means, yesh lo yimar she'em keshnei batim apsuchim l'chatzer. It's considered like 2 houses that are open to a chatzer. That's the lashon of the Tzemach Tzedek. Now obviously it doesn't mean a house with bedrooms. It means a house with apartments. That is actually, you can also see it in the Beis Meir on Siman Shin Samachay, explains it clearer. That's what it refers to. And therefore, the Tzemach Tzedek says, therefore you need a eruv chatzeres between the residents of this house, which have different rooms in it, and therefore now the mavoi goes back to being a mavoi. Because now that we looked at the mavoi and we saw that the mavoi has 1 house, each house independently. A regular today we look at houses, each house is its own house, and you don't have 2 houses within 1 chatzer, except for there's 1 place in Crown Heights you'll see it. But there's now, usually you don't have a chatzer with a bunch of houses open to it, like in the bungalow colonies. But each house itself, a lot of houses are 2 families. So each one of those becomes like a chatzer. So if you have a street which has 2 houses in it, and each house has 2 residents in it, it becomes a full-fledged mavoi and not a chatzer. And therefore, if you look in the Kitzur of the Tzemach Tzedek at the end of Ois Ches, the Lashon Tzemach Tzedek says, Miu lefio emes, mevoyos shelanu, yesh leimer chashuvim botim v'chatzeres psuchim l'soichoi, al kein ein lahalko. Therefore, you can't be makel. So now, L'maisa, when we look at when we make an eruv in our streets, so now, even if we will go and say that our streets that we have are not Reshus Harabim, maybe because they're not less than Tez Zayin Amma, or even less than Tez Zayin Amma wide, if they don't have 600,000 people, at least maybe there's still a Kərməlית. Kərməlית is still a problem. I'll tell you, every time he talks about Mefulish, he talks about Mefulish, Reshus Harabim, or the Kərməlית, not only to Reshus Harabim. Regardless, ultimately they're open to something which is open to Reshus Harabim. So they would need l'cha'ira, they would need a tikkun in each corner. And even if you were to say that it's surrounded by walls, the whole city, and therefore l'cha'ira it's ois Reshus Harabim, it becomes a Reshus Hayachid, or maybe it becomes a Kərməlית. We learned from the Tzemach Tzedek in Chidushim that I mentioned in the previous shiur that Asur Rabim applies even in a scenario where it's not fully a Reshus Rabim. You can still be mevatel the mechitza even if it has proper mechitzas. You can still have Asur Rabim mevatel mechitza. So you have a problem because each one of these mevayos is open to a Reshus Rabim. So logic would dictate that you would need a Tzuras HaPesach on every corner. To make a proper Eruv, you would need a Tzuras HaPesach on every corner, every place that it turns, you need a Tzuras HaPesach. Unless obviously you completely enclose it with a wall, and then we follow that there's no more Asur Rabim, which even that's a machlokes rishonim, and it seems like when Tzemach Tzedek is machmer, that even in a place like that it will still be considered Reshus Rabim, and therefore you would need in every corner, because otherwise you don't see the tikkun. So then we'll take it even a step further. When you have a driveway between two houses, you have a driveway. And the driveway, how does the driveway look? You have a house on the right, you have a house on the left, you have a driveway in the middle, and then behind each driveway, then behind each house, you have the garages and the backyard. So what is it? If each house of those two houses has two residents, so it's a mavoi. Essentially a mavoi. For all practical purposes. Why? Because it's a mavoi that has a chatzar on the right, and a chatzar on the left. So it'll be a mavoi. So you need so what we need, you would need l'chayra, you would need a lechi and a kaira. You would need it would be considered like a mavoi that's open to that's open to the Reshus Rabim to Kama. So you need a lechi and a kaira. I didn't look. So it would need a lechi or a kaira because that's a kula and a mavoi, right? That's a kula and a mavoi. But then at the same time you have a chumra and a mavoi. That when you take a turn in the back, you would need a tikkun back mumis, right? It's not a chatzar anymore. It's open to more than two people. Unless you consider that a chatzar. If you consider the chatzar, then you don't have a problem. Then you don't need a lechi, then you don't need a tikkun by that kmumis. But if it's a chatzar, a lechi and a kaira doesn't help you in the beginning. By the opening of the driveway, you would need a proper Tzuras HaPesach in the opening of the driveway. So it would depend what the people that are living on the two sides of the driveway are to determine when you make a small Eruv. This is not talking about making a big citywide Eruv. Make a big citywide Eruv. Obviously, it depends on how you.
You don't have to go to Chumrah? You don't have to go to Chumrah both ways?
Because of a suffix. If you want to go to Chumrah both ways, you can put two Tzuras HaPesachs. Anyway, because once you take to the back, it's definitely a chatzar. It's a private chatzar. It belongs to the two people. Now, this is this topic. I want to go, because we discussed over here, this whole Siman talks about seeing the tikkun of the Eruv, seeing the Tzuras HaPesach and everything. I want to go into a totally different topic, which is not really connected to Shin Samach Daled, but something which is connected to Shin Mem Hey, and connected to Shin Nun Ches also. Shin Mem Hey and Shin Nun Ches, Shin Mem Hey, that is, when you're talking about what the shiur of a Reshus HaYachid is. Why is that? Because that's connected to if you're able to see the mechitzas or not. It's not connected to the Shin Samach Daled, it's connected to something else. I'm going to get to it now because I forgot to deal with it when we learned to dance, so we'll deal with it now, and why not? There's no Ein Mukdam U'Mocher. In Shin Mem Hey, it talks about what's considered Reshus HaYachid D'Oraisa. It talks about even a karfef, if it's a big area, it's considered Reshus HaYachid D'Oraisa. In Siman Shin Nun Ches, it says that Mokim, every place which is hukaf l'dira, the Alter Rebbe says, afilu yesh bo kama milin, even if it has a lot of big couple milin, it's still considered mutar l'talta bekuloi, you're allowed to carry in everything. And Sivav, the Alter Rebbe repeats, afilu karfef, im ikifu mechitzoisav l'dira, דיני kechotzer l'chol davar, afilu yoysen mebeis l'sayim. And the Alter Rebbe does not give a shiur, what's the maximum amount of a Reshus HaYachid. If you look in Pirush Mishnah Rambam, in the end, in Eruv Perek Beis Mishnah Hey, towards the end of it, the lashon of the Pirush of the Rambam over there is v'hu shekoyrim ma'aseh karfef shehukaf l'dira afilu hoya b'midasei 1,000 mil mutar l'taltel bekulei. They are carrying the whole thing. The question is this a guzma? Is this a specific amount? Could it be less? Could it be less? Could it be more? So for that, we're going to look at something interesting. I mentioned in the past the kuntras of Rav Eisenstadt, which was written, which the Rebbe put his comments on it. And in the kuntras of Rav Eisenstadt regarding the Eid of Manhattan, where he discusses the various issues and solutions that have to do with this Eidov. Over there, he writes in Ois Ches like this. He says, Yesel al-Kain. He says the whole area of Manhattan, Efshar lir'oisei miroish kol hashetach hamukaf, the whole surrounded area of Manhattan, because he's talking about the walls and the rivers and everything else. Kol hashetach hamukaf efshar lir'oisei miroish abinyon miroish echad abatim agvoim b'Manhattan. You could see it all when you go to the top of one of the tall buildings. You'll be able to see the whole hekef. You could see the whole Manhattan from one of the top buildings, and therefore the whole hekef is visible. And with that, he solves the problem that Tosfos asks regarding being a visible hekef and everything. That says if you don't have to see the hekef, kuli alma makif le'okeanos, the whole world is surrounded by an ocean. So therefore, if you don't have to see the hekef, the whole thing is the rishus yachid. Take klapedei, but the whole thing is the rishus yachid, the chidush le'olam. But could we say it's Rishus Yachid because the ocean surrounds the whole thing on such a big area? And so therefore he says that it's not he says that with that he solves the problem, because there's an issue between the Ramban and the Ritva. We're going to get to it soon, that you have to be able to see the whole hekef. On that the Rebbe writes as follows, and this is the letter, page 136. It's one of the comments of the Rebbe on this kuntras. Over there, the Rebbe writes as follows. You can't say, it doesn't make sense to say that Lu Yitzur, I would build a building which would reach all the way up to Roshei B'Shamayim. And from there would be able to see the whole America. Yeah, Lu Yitzur, the whole America, the whole massive area. See the whole hekef. Will that convert the whole area just by me standing on top of the mountain? Will that convert by me seeing it? Will that convert the whole area from Rishus Hashanah Midiraise to Rishus Yachid? That doesn't make sense. And even more so, even if it's, and to say even more that because it's royally raised, because only you're able to see, not that you actually see, you're able to see it, that's already enough. It's considered Rishus Yachid. It doesn't make sense. He says because then the shail of the Gemara of Kuli Alma Makif Lo Kianus will still be in place. Because ultimately, if the Gemara is only an issue, a technical issue, and Kuli Alma Makif Lo Kianus, you go higher and higher, you'll be able to see it. And this letter was written before they got space shuttles, and today you're able to see the whole world. You go up high enough, you can see you can see everything. So if it's only a matter of being able to see it from a distance, then the chayre wouldn't work. The chayre that doesn't solve the question of Tosfos. Therefore, the Rebbe says it seems like the Rebbe doesn't hold that standing on top of a building helps. Happens to be the shit of one of the achronim about standing on top of a building. The Rebbe doesn't mention this one of the achronim that writes that, but that's what Rav Eisenstadt chayre based himself on that logic.
Don't we say that like something along those lines when it comes to the shkia and all that? Since if you go on top of the mountain.
So that's what the Rebbe says. Akorchoch tzarich loymar. Therefore, you have to say that there has to be some kind of measurement to what the maximum amount of hekef that you have is. So it says, tzarich sheyirei be'amdoi b'shetach haaretz. Has to be that the person, when he stands on flat ground, is able to see the whole hekef. But how much is that? There's different shiurim. The Rebbe starts first by a shiur that we're soon going to see was mentioned by other achronim. In Maseches B'chayres, Shu Tezayin mil, 16 mil. That's the distance. What's in Maseches B'chayres? Maseches B'chayres talks about over there in Daf Nun Daled and Beis. It brings the Mishnah that you have Meiser Behema. Which behemoths are all counted when you want to choose a Meiser Behema and you have a bunch of animals? Is it all the ones that are standing in one box, or how do you count the animals? So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says it's up to 16 amas, because that is Kimloi Regel Behema Roya. The animal which eats, Kimloi Regel is 16 mil. And Rashi over there gives you two perushim. Number one is that is how far an animal goes away from the roy when it's grazing. And the second pirush, which is based in the Gemara, is that how far the roye could see them while he's watching the animals. And that's what the Gemara says afterwards. Also, the Kimel Rabbanon, the Shisar Mil Koshalte Be'eina Beroye. That by the roye is able to see 16 mil. Shalte Be'eina, you already know this lashon Shalte Be'eina because you know it from Kaira. You're able, it's visible that that's enough for that's a share of 16 amas. But the Rebbe says you want to take the share of 16 amas. Now by this, what?
16 mil.
16 mil, I mean. 16 mil, which by the way is some of the shit to say that we're going to get later after I'm starting first from what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says, hey, we could do more than that shear. Lav daf get 16 mil. You don't have to do such a small shear. Maybe more than that. Why? Because the Gemara mentions a shear of 16 mil regarding Bechayres, mitzad the din of Shalte Be'eina. Shalte Be'eina doesn't apply, that applies for Bechayres. Doesn't apply for Mechitzas. We know it applies for Kaira, doesn't apply for Mechitzas. Mechitzas, we don't have that shear of Shalte Be'eina that you have to be able to see it. So therefore, the Rebbe says, okay, so it's not 16 mil, it's got to be more than that. How much more than that? So the Rebbe says, maybe look at Maseches Pesachim. Over there, Maseches Pesachim, it's Tzadik Daled Amanav, the Gemara over there brings about the lashon that Rebbe says, Sheyachal ikanas besusim upradim. You can come in with horses and mules. What is this talking about? It says, if somebody's standing Korban Pesach and he was Tamei, and he's standing outside the city of Moedin, from Moedin to Yerushalayim, which is a distance that you could ride besusim upradim, you could ride with horses and with mules, but you cannot do it by foot. Then the Gemara says maybe it should be chayiv kares because he could have used a horse and a mule to get to Yerushalayim and he didn't. And the Gemara says no, he's not chayiv because that's considered he was baderech, he was on the way and he couldn't his potter. But if he stands between Moedin and Yerushalayim, which is walking distance, and the only reason, and he was riding his horse, and the only reason he couldn't get into Yerushalayim was because there was traffic of Gemalim v'Kroinis, there was traffic on the road, so he is chayiv kares. Why? Because he could have gotten off his horse and walked. That is the distance. So which means it's more than 16 mil. So the shear right now we moved up. It's a little bit longer than that. A shear that you could walk. A shear that you could walk is still considered a walk on Erev Pesach, full day. That's the shear from Moedin to a little bit from after Moedin to Yerushalayim. It's more than 16 mil. Maybe that's the shear that Rebbe says. So even more than that. Then the Rebbe goes even further and says maybe look also Shiur Mokim Karev. What's Shiur Mokim Karev? It's in a din of Avelus in Maseches Moed Katan. Over there, the Gemara writes that if one of the Avelim came on the 7th day one of the Avelim came on the 7th day, and he came from a Mokim Karev. What's a Mokim Karev? That technically he could have come earlier when he heard about it, and he would have been able to come, but he didn't come. So even if he comes on the 7th day, he doesn't have to start Shiva then. He joins the people who are sitting Shiva, and he concludes them on the 7th day. So therefore, the Rebbe says maybe it's dependent on the shear of Mokim Karev. The Rebbe continues and says, okay, but when we go to Mokim Karev, it's not only what he says. Look in the book Kolboy to an Avelus, which is from a Rabbi Greenwald. I think he was in Columbus or in Cincinnati. Chelik Aleph Amud Shin Lamed, and over there he explains the shit that he says. What's the Mokim Karev? 1 day walking distance, which is similar to Korban Pesach, which what we saw before, which is 10 parsa. That's a walking distance of 1 day, walking measurement. And he says over there that there was a whole machlekes when the trains were established. If somebody is able to come by train, and 1 day travel by train is much more than 10 parsa, is it still considered Mokim Karev regarding Avelis? So there was some shittas which say that 10 parsa is 10 parsa, but he says the majority of the Achreinim held that it's not 10 parsa, it's even more than that. Whatever you could come by in 1 day. And he continues, says, no, today you have airplanes you can fly even a lot more than that. So he says it's a question, but he's masking that if he comes within a reasonable time, within the first 3 days of Avelus, then with a flight, then it's considered a mokim karev. Yeah, that's the ones that the Rebbe brings down. Which means that the Rebbe doesn't give you achroa which way, what's the maximum shiur of a reshus hayachid. But it depends on a reasonable measurement, not just standing in one place and seeing it, but it could be a place which you could see in one day. You don't have to stand in one place and see it, but a place you could see in one day, you could travel in one day. That's what it looks like. Right now, where is this so what are the Rishonim that are relevant to it? So let's go back to you have the Ritva and the Ran. They both say that the Ritva and the Ran say you have to be able to see the mechitzas. Able to see them. And people understood that obviously means 16 mil. The Ramban says you stand in the middle and you should be able to see all the mechitzas by standing. But then none of them go into the detail what the shear is. So does it mean standing? Does it mean walking? What the distance? Some people did, some Farshim did take the approach. 16 mil is 16 mil. You can't have a reshus hayachid more than 16 mil. So if you make an eruv, can't be more than 16 mil in total. A square of 16 mil. Uh-huh.
16 mil to each way?
So that's no. The Marasham, who he explains it's a 16 mil in total. Because that's how he understood the Ramban.
8 each way.
8 each way, yeah. The Moshe Feinstein, he is the one who took the approach. No, the way he understood it was he's the only one that says it's 32 mil. He says you stand in the middle, and you have 16 mil in every direction. That's why he says that the Eiruvim over here, the reason you can't make it in Brooklyn is unless it's less than 32 mil total. 32 mil by 32 mil. Lamed Beis mil. Manhattan, I don't know what the share of it is. It's definitely longer than 32 mil up. But that's how he is, but nobody else took that approach. Some people took a 60 mil, some people Bichlal didn't take that approach. Alter Rebbe Bichlal doesn't mention a share. The one place says Kama Mil in Yosef Beis Osayim, it doesn't say specific Lashonis. And the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe is similar to the Lashon of the Rambam, not in Pirush Mishnah, but in Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe does not mention a specific share. So some people come and say, the Alter Rebbe didn't mention a share, You look at the Rebbe's letter doesn't give you a specific share. The Rebbe doesn't go with a 16 mil, but it's more than that, but it's within reason. It seems like, based on all the records the Rebbe brings, that it's something that you could travel in one day. So, if it's a big enough eruv, you could take a car and you could see the whole thing in one day. You don't have to take 3 days to see the whole eruv. L'chayra, it's fine. L'chayra, that's considered a big enough thing. No, it's plane you can't travel the whole eruv. You can't see the whole hekef. No, the reason the Rebbe brings the plane is to say that the shiur of mokim karev is not dependent on foot traffic. It's dependent on a measurement that you could travel. Come say you're not going flying with a plane from one end of the eruv to the other end of the eruv in one day. What you're doing is you're going in a circle. You're able to drive it. At least you're able to walk it if you want to go on one of the explanations. Mokim karev, you're able to walk it in one day. A big enough hek if you're able to walk in one day.
Or you can go high enough in a building.
No, the Rebbe doesn't hold it high enough in the building. The Marasham mentions it high enough in the building.
However much you can climb in one day, that however much you can see by the time you hit, whatever height you hit in one day.
I'm not sure.
Climbing up.
Take a flight up, you see a lot more. Take a.
Well, you can tiny, you don't see the mechitzas. I don't know. You don't see the walls. You're so high up in the
So
air.
pictures from satellites, from space.
Your eye doesn't see it.
You could see the whole America surrounded by an ocean. You see the mechitzas. See the whole Australia surrounded by an ocean.
You can get that height in one
Whole
day.
continent. Kule alma mukaf okeanos.
Yeah, but Brooklyn you could drive around in a day. Manhattan you definitely drive in a day.
Some places in Brooklyn it's faster to walk than to drive. It's a traffic push. Sometimes it might be faster to walk than to drive.
But traffic doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference. That's what we know from Erev Pesach, yeah? Traffic doesn't make a difference how long it takes for traffic. It's technically you're able to do it. On a day like today, there's no traffic. You can see everything.
What do you mean? You can go in the midway, you can drive miles in a day.
You don't see anything.
Oh, I'm saying the amount you can drive in one day without traffic, we don't take traffic into account. You're basically saying the whole world.
Not the whole world. Make a whole circle. I'm not saying for sure one way or the other. I'm saying the Rebbe gives all of them. Again, the Rebbe's letter, the Rebbe didn't paskin. The Rebbe just brings, tells the rabbi, don't be so quick to paskin that just because you climb on a building it's enough. Could be it's a shear of 16 mil, could be it's a little bit more than that, could be it's a walking distance, we don't know. The fact is that the Rebbe brings 16 mil and then the Rebbe brings all the other bigger shiurim. There's no achra over there. Now there are some which learned from the Taisvus. There's a Taisvus which is discussed. We discussed a few times already. It's mentioned in the Kuntra Sachran in Shin Mem Hey Sifkat and Beis. Over there, discussing mechitza b'dei shamayim. Does it help or not? Is to be considered a mechitza. Why? Over there, Taisvus says mechitza b'dei shamayim einu moil kulei hai. That's the lashon of the Taisvus. The Mogen Avram and others deleted the kulei hai. Mechitza b'dei shamayim einu moil. Why? Because Asram vat the mechitza. The Alter Rebbe explains it's not exactly so, and vat the kulei hai, that if you have a full-fledged Reshus Harabim Derais Hashnishal Kol Tanoi Reshus Harabim, and then you have a Mechitza B'dei Shemayim, is also Rabim Mevatli the Mechitzas. But if it's B'dei Odam, it seems like it's not Mevatli the Mechitza. Right? So what they're saying is that even if you were to say a shir in a Reshus HaYachid, that the Reshus HaYachid doesn't have a shir like the Rambam, or it has a very big shir, it only applies to Mechitzas B'dei Adam, not to Mechitzas B'dei Shamayim. If you look in Shas Chuvas Chavatzelas Asharoin from the Rav of Tarnopol in Europe, in Chelik Aleph Siman Chav Beis, he explains, it's in short, he explains it similar to the Alter Rebbe, and he also explains the same idea, that the difference between B'dei Shamayim and B'dei Adam, it depends on it depends if it's not fully cancelled b'dei shamayim. If it's b'dei shamayim, it's not fully cancelled. If it has full all the tnoim, then it is cancelled. That is so. Therefore, when it comes to making these mechitzas, if you want to make even if you want to say that a Reshus Harabim is a big enough hekef, the big enough hekef is not going to work if it's also b'dei shamayim. It's only going to work if it's also b'dei adam. And interestingly, like you all know it always according to Chazon Ish for whatever reason, because he has original ideas, he says that that depends on what she'ein bnei adam oisim dugmasei. He says that if it's such a big shir b'dei shamayim, that people don't do such a big shir, then that's when it's that's when you don't consider it big enough for a that's too big to be considered a hekef. And then you have also Rabim Mevatli Mechitza. But if it's a small Mechitza, even B'dei Shamayim, it does work. And we don't say also Rabim. But from Alter Rebbe, it's pretty clear that it's not dependent on that. It's if it's B'dei Shamayim, and if it's B'dei Shamayim, the Mechitza, a big Mechitza does not work because of Asurabim, but only when they have Nishlu Mukot Nai Reshus Harabim. Otherwise, we do not say that Asurabim Vatlam Mechitza in such a scenario. That's according to Alter Rebbe. According to Tzemach Tzedek, we already explained that Asurabim applies almost in Tzemach Tzedek Chidushim. Asurabim applies almost in every scenario where you have the other Tanoim, because don't forget, Tzemach Tzedek Paskins, the Chatchila definitely, so the Alter Rebbe also Paskins, Reshus Harabim is 60 namas, so it's very easy to have Tnoi Reshus Harabim. The only way you don't have Tnoi Reshus Harabim is when you have a roof on top of it, you have walls all around it. But otherwise, you have Tnoi Reshus Harabim in much smaller areas, and therefore, since Nishlamut Tnoi Reshus Harabim, you have the issue of Asurabim Mevatli Mechitza. If you have the issue of Asurabim Mevatli Mechitza, you already have the Mechitzas don't work any longer. So therefore, this is just the topic I wanted to, off topic, so to speak, that I want to discuss with you in continuation to this, even though it's not connected to Siman Shin Samach Daled. The only reason was because Shin Samach Daled discusses the idea of seeing it, since we're finishing Shin Samach Daled about seeing things, seeing the heker on the other side. It's not connected to this, it's talking about a different din. Therefore, I decided to use the opportunity and cover this topic, which was not discussed previously. Next shiurim will be on Siman Shin Samach Hey Mitzvah Hashem. Next shiurim in the Chisei I'll try to have a shir for